Welcome everybody to a Tilt webinar with Dr. Peggy Semingson, engaging students with multimodal content creation for language learning, from micro-learning content to long-form videos. Today is Thursday, the 8th of July. It's 8 o'clock in British summertime, and it is quite summery at the moment. And we're really happy to have you. I'm Helen Myers, I'm chair of the London branch of the Association for Language Learning. Very happy to be hosting these webinars on behalf of ALL. People who've helped us to set these together have been Heike and Linguiscope, but Joe Dale is the person who's really brought us all together. He's been the talent scout. So before he introduces Dr. Semingson to us later on, talk about yourself. Joe, what have you got to offer?
Okay, thanks, Helen. So in the chat, I've put a link to a Google Doc with lots of different example sessions on remote or hybrid teaching that I can offer. So if you're looking for a slot at the start of September or later on in the autumn term for some ideas on online teaching and learning, let me know. Have a look at the document, and I'd love to help out if you're interested.
Thank you very much. As far as ALL is concerned, the Association for Language Learning, if you're a member, please do write in the chat now and say that you're a member and encourage other people to join. If you're from another country and you're in a language association, let us know which one it is. We think it's really important to be part of an association. We've got other webinars coming up. So this is obviously ours today, but we've got another one coming up next Thursday. Do you want to say anything about that, Joe?
Yeah, so we have Esther Park, who is an ESOL teacher, so teaches English as a second language, and she's going to be talking to us around lots of practical ideas around the use of technology, as you can see, speaking, writing, reading, and listening. If you check her out on Twitter, she's doing lots of amazing, creative, different ideas, and so I would really encourage everyone to come along to that session as well. We will be recording it, as always. We do appreciate people are tired at this time of year, but like tonight, it's going to be another must-see webinar.
Right, thank you very much. So over to you, Joe, now to, oh, and by the way, also Joe has already given me lots of names. We're, you know, what started off as being just a series of webinars to help us while we were in lockdown, really, I think has turned into a bit of an institution now. So as long as Joe has got these wonderful people together and is introducing us, we're really happy to keep this going for as long as you like. So thank you very much for all the names you've already given me for next term, Joe.
No problem at all.
Over to you now to introduce our speaker.
Fantastic. So Peggy, do you want to just share your screen if that's okay? And then I'll introduce you if that's all right.
Yeah, can you let me know if you can see it?
Yeah, we can see it. Perfect. That's perfect. Okay. So as you can see, Peggy is a doctor from the University of Texas at Arlington. I saw Peggy speak at a recent event called MWALT, which is the Midwest Language Learning Organization, to do with technology, interesting in technology. As my understanding is it's part of IALT, which is another organization. They had their conference about a month ago, I think, if I remember correctly, which you came along to, Peggy, I think. And I was really impressed by what Peggy presented at MWALT. It was only a sort of a 10-minute presentation, but it was looking at multimodal content, particularly micro podcasting. And anyone that knows me knows that I'm a big fan of podcasting. And so I asked Peggy if she could come along and speak to us tonight for an extended version and lots of ideas on multimodal content creation. So I'm a big fan, even though I've only seen you briefly, Peggy. So I very much am looking forward to hearing lots of your ideas. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this. So over to you, Peggy. I'll be collecting the questions. Everyone in the chat right now, keep your questions coming, and then I'll put those to Peggy when we have a natural pause through the presentation. So over to you, Peggy.
Thank you so much, Joe. Yeah, it's good to meet you. I'm glad for this global connection. I'm all about global collaboration, and I don't think I've ever shared to a group from London before, so this is exciting for me. So this session, workshop, I'm not sure what to call it, is really about multimodality, but I always like to introduce the idea of micro-learning because it's a novel concept for people. And I think it is really helpful for language learning in particular, because we deal with, bits of language. We deal with, long form language. We learn words. We're learning vocabulary. We're learning pronunciation, everything. And so audio and video and other tools can be useful in small doses and small chunks. And so people think it has to be some long thing. It doesn't. So I'm here to share today how you can use microlearning with multimodality as a teacher, but also help your students to create their own content beyond memes and things like that they may already be doing. So these are just some themes that I like in my career. I'm an associate professor at the University of Texas at Arlington. It's near Dallas. I just tell people I'm from Dallas because they know where that is. And so in my teaching here at the university and in my past life as a K through 12 educator, bilingual and ESL educator, Spanish and English, these themes came up in all of those teaching. Personalized learning and mobile learning, micro learning. Obviously, mobile learning is more recent, but I think it's still underutilized. Would you all agree? I mean, I think we can do so much with phones and tablets, and we're not using it enough. Multimodality, YouTube is the focus for today. There's obviously more, but YouTube is just so ubiquitous. And podcasting, and then connected learning. You all, what did you say? You have done 130 webinars. That is fabulous connecting. And you have social media, so you already know about connected learning. And then we've all been teaching remotely for the last, 15 months. And so, but I've been teaching online since 2008. And so I've been in the deep end of that for quite a while. So please stay in touch. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and I try to post, but it's a bit random. So one of my goals is strategic posting and having a schedule with that. So just feel free to type in the chat a word or a phrase. Where are you? I'm assuming you're all in the same location, but maybe not. So I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I am a professor of TESOL. And again, I have also taught teachers. I've also been involved in teacher preparation. I mainly teach online. So New York City, Surrey, UK, Isle of Wight. Great. I love to see where people are. DFW, awesome. France, Sweden. I think I'm part Scandinavian, Norwegian. Toronto. Wow, this is very global. So we're all in different time zones. That's amazing. That's great. South Wales. My connection to the UK, I was once married to a Scotsman. He was from Falkirk, Scotland. South Wales, West Sussex, UK. Great. Okay, I'm going to keep it moving since we got a little bit of a late start. Again, this is the handout. I don't know if I can copy that link, so I'll put it in the chat. We have Peru, Southeast Ireland. That's awesome. I love, I used to put up a map when I did live teaching, and people would put a little dot where they were. That's always fun. Okay, I'm going to keep it moving because I've got a lot of ideas, and we want time for dialogue. But I'm monitoring the chat as well. So again, just a few big ideas. I don't have time to go super in depth, but microlearning is part of this framework of multimodality. It has a lot to do with the idea of cognitive load, that we don't want to overwhelm students. And so we can chunk content into small units. So videos, 1 to 5 minutes in length on a topic, or demonstrating something, or giving directions on something, or modeling something. And then 1 to 5 minutes for podcasts, but it could even be 5 seconds. Like if you're helping somebody, oh, Helen, your family lives near Falkirk. They may know my ex-husband's family. So listening, speaking, all of these things really lend themselves well to microlearning. So think about when you go to dictionary.com or whatever, and you want to hear how a word is pronounced, that's microlearning. So helping your students to find microlearning and to create microlearning can really enhance their learning. Now, the one big assumption I'm making is that everybody has some kind of smartphone. I realize not everybody does, but many students do. And so that's a big assumption I'm making in this presentation. So just keep that in mind. But with mobile learning, students can do microlearning, create videos, create audio, listen to podcasts, use apps to create and curate content. And then I love YouTube. Okay, so why do we do this? One thing is it's flexible learning, but it's also moving beyond text. So my PhD is in literacy. I'm very interested in the way that text is changing. We're not reading books so much anymore. We're reading digital print, and David Ranking at Clemson University calls this post-typographic. And so we're moving into visuals, and we're moving into visual literacy. We're moving into multimodal literacies, plural. A few more ideas, just, you want to model for students this idea of digital presence. And I picked up that you all are about open learning and open pedagogy. So creating multimodal content, you don't have to share it openly and publicly, but it's nice when you can. And I'm talking about, videos and podcasts. You don't have to require it, but you can tell your students and that it can help them amplify their digital presence, like when they go to get a job, when they want to have other people see what they're doing, their knowledge. So amplification, they can promote it on social media. It's really quite easy to share video and audio and curated content through social media spaces like you all do with Twitter. And then having a multimedia presence, either yourself or your students, and then just participating in things like blogging. Okay, and then these last two ideas are just this idea of networked learning. We're all learners together. So the great thing about multimodal learning is it's usually open, so people can leave comments and that kind of thing, networked learning, and then also you're modeling it for others. And that's one of my key points is you need to create a YouTube channel if you want your students to engage in YouTube. And so step one is starting with the educator, with the teacher, and getting your YouTube channel going, or making it better. Or like I've been doing YouTube forever, but I've never really gotten feedback. So that's why I ask for feedback. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing with it. Because it's new-ish for many of us. And I see a comment from Helen, concept of microlearning is quite new to some of us. Did you know it's actually really popular in the corporate sector? So they really use it a lot with training and development in the corporate sector. I have an article that I wrote on microlearning, and nearly all of the citations are from corporate writers writing white papers and that kind of thing. Maybe we are assuming we all know what this means, but it requires clarification. Yeah, I'm gonna mention a definition in a minute. And then finally, the last kind of theoretical component is just this idea of teacher presence. So you need to model multimodality, finding good quality video and podcast content for your students, and guiding them heavily through the creation of multimodal content. It can be new for your students. Which link are you talking about, Helen or Joe? Do you want to chime in real quick?
Yeah, I wasn't sure which link Helen was referring to. Helen, could you clarify in the chat if that's okay? And then we'll.
Oh, it's in my slides. The definition. I see. Here it is. Okay. So what is microlearning? I think that's what she was talking about. Yeah, and I put this slide. If anyone needs this slide link, I can post it again. Okay, I can do that later. So microlearning is just broadly short bursts of information. Really, it can be from a few seconds to, I would say, no more than 5 minutes, and then it's not really micro anymore. So it's often followed by an opportunity to interact. So a short video and a 2-question quiz, or a short podcast and a space to leave a comment. So it usually involves interactivity. It doesn't have to, but you boost the networked learning and connected learning when you have an interaction, even if it's just learner to content. It can be learner to learner or learner to teacher, that kind of thing. Thanks for reposting my resources. And then Theo Hug, who I believe is in Europe, he was kind of a pioneer in microlearning. And he says it overlaps with mobile learning. And that makes sense because we can access this content through our phones, and we often do. So here's some examples you can use in your teaching. The rest of this presentation is highly practical. We're moving on past theory. So like listen to a 1-minute video or podcast and take a 2-question quiz. Listen to an example of the way a word or sentence is pronounced and practice it on your own. So lots of chances to try it out. That whole I do, my turn, your turn kind of approach to teaching. Watch a very short video, post a comment, use a back channel. We use Microsoft Teams in the class at UT Arlington. And so using a back channel and doing a 1 to 3 sentence, exit ticket. What were your thoughts on today's lesson or lecture or whatever? Or, if you did something, experience together, have them post a synthesizing thought in the back channel, and then, or post a tweet if you have a class hashtag. So listen to a series of podcasts and reflect in a discussion forum. So that's a little more, traditional. But really, students should be able to use their mobile devices to participate in this. They can use their computer too. And then creating a digital artifact. So students can make a podcast, students can make a digital concept map, or make a short video using a tool called Flipgrid. So here's a few more examples. These are more, I want to say, like a little bit passive, but they can still be helpful in learning language. So digital flashcards, there's apps students can use to review vocabulary or verb tenses or kind of, more knowledge level content. And then short quizzes, review multimedia. Some of my students tell me they listened to a video 5 times because they didn't get it the first time. And yeah, so just some ideas. Let me pause for a minute and see if there's any thoughts, connections, or questions, because I'm going to jump into podcasting and YouTube next.
We don't have any questions at the moment, but I would love to see some questions coming in.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea around getting the students to create their content to show their learning is absolutely fabulous. I wish more people did micro podcasting and such like. So this is fantastic. So anyone listening right now, if you could put your questions in, that would be fantastic. I can see we've got one from Zayed. Do you think multimodal learning could overwhelm teachers who are already burdened with regular mode of teaching, e.g. face-to-face and exam focus and large class context? What would you say on that, Peggy?
Okay, yes, I have thought about that. So not everyone has time. It sometimes helps if you can rope somebody in to helping you with the technology. So actually my boyfriend does video for a living and he helps me quite a bit. He even edits. And so that's helpful, like roping people in to help you can be really helpful. They may be burned out too though, so bribery helps. But that aside, if you're on your own, like a lot of us are, use other people's content. And I say that like obviously ethically and with permission. So that's the thing about open resources and things like that. YouTube is most of it's out there. You just have to curate it. But over time, you can build up, some content links and even have your students help you find content. So students can help you curate and locate things. And I do that as an assignment, like curating content is an assignment in my ESL methods class. And I give them feedback like, oh, that's not so great, or, so that's just what I'm thinking. And the other thing is baby steps. Like maybe you're just going to make one video and tell your students that you're sticking your big toe into starting to do multimodal learning, and be transparent with them that you're learning alongside them, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's lovely.
Yeah. And use your phone to make content too is another one. And then Helen says, this format appeals to adult learners who are time poor. Yes. And I've had students say, I watch your video while I'm cooking or whatever. And that's great. I love it. They can just listen. However, people need to participate with learning is great. And I've even met my online students and like their husband will be there. And she's like, oh, honey, this is the woman from the videos. And I'm like, wow, the whole family learns when you do multimodal learning. Yes, baby steps is really crucial, and not to expect it to be, Steven Spielberg level movies or whatever. So, okay, so podcasting. Let me ask you, Joe, I know that I'm supposed to be presenting, but what do you like about podcasting?
That's a good question. I got into podcasting in 2006. I was one of the early adopters, as it were. I just love the way in which the whole content creation process in languages helps to reinforce speaking, listening. The whole idea of producing a script helps with writing and collaborating together. And then the fact you're publishing to a real audience, so you're getting a real audience for your speaking work, the fact that it's capturing speaking and it's not sort of just going off into the ether, and students are thinking carefully about what they want to say. They want it to be as good as possible. I think there is an issue around how long it takes to produce, but I'm sure tonight you're going to be telling us about sort of quick and easy ways of using web tools like Anchor or SoundCloud. But I think, I love being able to like edit lots of different sounds together. I do my own podcast, although it's sort of on hiatus at the moment. But we did 10 episodes and encouraged people from the community to send us in little snippets of audio, which I then edited it all together into Audacity. So I think you've got the creation process, which is great for language learning, but I also think the idea of being able to listen on the move, on demand, so you can listen whenever you want, when you get a moment of time, is just brilliant. I could go on and on and on, but I went over.
Just kind of echoing. Okay, great. So yeah, just to piggyback off that, the flexibility and on the go learning is really great. And like, it sounds like you have high, what is it called? High production value
Definitely.
types of podcasts. And so my whole thing is start with low production value, like raw, have semi-scripted ideas of what you want to say, maybe just an outline, with an intro and an outro. And the intro and outro can be the same, a 5-second to 10-second intro. And then finding free music online. There used to be one called the Free Music Archive, and that has since shut down, and I was so disappointed. Do you know of a good place to find sound effects or music or anything?
There's a few. I mean, with Anchor, you get access to some PodSafe music, which come with the app, which is really nice. Okay. I'll have a think about everything. There's one called Computech, which I think that's right. I'll double check, but yeah, there's if you do a search for PodSafe music on, say, Twitter, then you'll find directories of different places, and there's lots of Facebook groups to do with podcasting as well, where you could easily find information. My favorite one is called Podcast Editors Club, which is obviously all about editing, which I'm a big fan of. It's a real skill, I think, but yeah, there's lots of examples one can find for sure.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for that input. Okay, great. So I use SoundCloud. It's a good beginner's, I think, starting place, and it has a mobile app. And I believe you can still use the mobile app to directly record onto it. And so I use playlists, and I think the idea of thematically organizing your content into playlists is really helpful. So it could be, as we all know from the pandemic, probably all organized into modules. So module 1, module 2, or it can be thematic. So when I taught literacy, I had, a phonics unit, a vocabulary unit, a comprehension unit, a fluency development unit. So it just all went into those categories. And so thematic playlists are really helpful to students. And also if they want to preview or get ahead or review, it's there and it's intuitive where to find it, or by episode is the more familiar podcast if you do longer form. But for micro learning, I do these thematic playlists because the chunking of your ideas is so small. It's like 1 to 3 minutes. And so do check out my SoundCloud channel on your own time. I don't have too much time to spend on that. And Joe shared a few good ideas on podcasting, probably at a higher level. What is the advantage of audio podcast over videos? I think just attuning to one modality versus videos. You really have to, you could listen to a podcast anywhere and doing anything. And so even driving, right? Especially if it comes through your car stereo or whatever, Bluetooth. But for me, for videos, there should be a visual reason they're looking at it, that they need that visual component. So you're either demonstrating something, etc. And Joe just posted a resource. Yeah, so to me, it's like, when and where are they listening to it? And then, safety kind of thing, like you wouldn't want them watching a video while they're driving. I hope not. And that kind of thing. So let me move into videos next. And so videos for teacher authored content, you really want them short and sweet. So you can start by using your phone. There's little $10 tripods you can use with your phone, or I just use the webcam to record. And then I'll go through a few different types of videos you can use with language learning. And then email the videos to your students, embed them into your learning system. They can be optional or required. Again, you don't want students to be overwhelmed with anything you're pushing out, especially if you're just figuring it out yourself. And so sometimes I'll make them optional and that kind of thing. And so you can post them on discussion boards. Sometimes I link them with infographics, and your students can create infographics too. And then as well with videos, I don't know, let me touch just quickly on curating content and type in the chat. Has anyone had their students gather multimodal resources that connect to your course topic or language? So again, in my class, I have them start by, before they even create digital content, is they start by locating good digital content. And in my case, I teach ESL methods. So how do you teach people how to learn English? And so they go out and find, you know, pedagogical things, websites. Some of the websites are a little old, I want to say, like, and so I nudge them towards YouTube, and I nudge them towards, you know, certain podcasts so that they can get a little more current. So they make playlists and that kind of thing. And so I help them get started with that. And then students, oh yes, Wakelet is a good one for bookmarking. Have you all used Wakelet? I've used it to share resources with students, especially with grad students. You know, here's some more additional resources. Again, that above and beyond content doesn't have to be required, and that kind of thing. And your students can use Wakelet to gather content. I just had them put it in a Google Doc or like a table. So also students can use mobile applications like Quizlet, Instagram, Twitter, that kind of thing. But just to summarize, kind of the main ways that microlearning can connect to multimodality: podcasts, so making a smartphone voice memo, the built-in voice feature and uploading it or sharing it to the course. SoundCloud, 3 hours are free with SoundCloud, and then it's, you know, everything is like for a fee. But you do get, I think, 3 free hours with SoundCloud. And then videos, YouTube, and then they can use the phone for what I call minimalist content creation. Also making infographics, like using canva.com, which is really quite good. And then Adobe Spark, social media. Social media is a little controversial because you're putting content out there, but students can certainly follow you if you're sharing content that relates to learning. And then things like Quizlet. And Helen says, yes, and Padlet for Wales, Unit 3. Speaking, students choose their own topic to discuss with the examiner for about 15 minutes. They love it. Oh, that's great. I love it. Excellent. Okay, so let's pause just for a second. Have you used microlearning or multimodal learning? And how might you implement it? So let me just have everyone think of an application. And Joe's sharing freesound.org and zapsplat.com.
So those are for sort of sound effects and things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I think, I think because probably most people here are secondary teachers that maybe they're not, they don't have the time to do as much multimodal learning as they'd like to. But it'd be lovely to see what people say in the chat. So keep those questions and those comments coming, everyone. It'd be great.
Yeah, and if you have a delayed thought too, that's fine. And I'd love to hear from you too. If you're watching the recording, feel free to tag me on Twitter. Okay, let's jump into YouTube. It's my favorite. I've been YouTubing since, I want to say, like 2011. I can't even remember. And I'm not trying to brag, but I have about 5,000 subscribers. I do track my analytics and the numbers just to see what's trending and what people are drawn to. I have about 2.4 million minutes viewed, and the retention on my top 10 videos is pretty good. And I have seen that people love technical topics. So students want to know the really hard stuff on videos. So I think the best thing to do for getting started with YouTube is find all your tricky topics. So when I taught literacy, no one knew what phonological awareness was. It was like this linguistic term that nobody had heard of until they wanted to become a teacher. And so I made a video, and that is by far my outlier in terms of what people like on my YouTube channel, is this video on me just talking about phonological awareness for 5 minutes, and phonemic awareness and phonics, and like, what is the difference? And that is, you know, by far way up here in terms like of minutes viewed, et cetera. So if I were getting started with multimodal learning, pick your trickiest topics, your most technical, you know, things, or the topics that people really need to know in your subject that they might watch more than once, type of thing. So those essential learnings and things to know. So let's see, someone said they loved Wakelet. That's, yeah, if you haven't checked it out, it's really easy to get. It's very user friendly, and it's, your students can also really easily use the links that you share with them. And you can share video, and you can share multimodal things on there. So that's what I like about it. Any kind of digital content. Okay, so again, think mobile with YouTube. Here's my channel. Let me see if it pops up. I'm going to have to mute when it pops up. Okay. So I organize it through playlists. I use Canva to create the YouTube cover art. So if you go to canva.com, you can just type in YouTube cover art, and some of the videos have thumbnails with art. And so those are not essential, but they do help if students are going directly to your channel, and so they can kind of see at a glance. And if I'm going to assume, you said most people are secondary, that students are on YouTube for other reasons outside of school. And so they're used to seeing that format with the thumbnail, drawing them into the topic. And now you don't have to make it fluorescent orange and big font and that kind of thing. There's things that the big YouTubers do to draw people into their videos. You don't need to do that kind of in your face thumbnails, but I think having a visual, like mine has probably too much text. Some of it's better, less text is more kind of thing on the thumbnail, but just a title and an image or something, just drawing people in. And that's why I spend a lot of time on YouTube, seeing what people do to draw people in to have good, effective videos that people actually want to watch. That's how I justify staying on YouTube. Helen says, I keep meaning to sort my channel. It is such a muddle. Yes, and it goes back to time and knowing what to do. So I just try to organize through playlists. Some of the playlists are other people's content, and some are my own. And then I really like the looking at the analytics. So I'm going to go back to the slides. Okay, I'm going to skip the poll for time. But again, YouTube connects with this whole idea of the flipped classroom. So students can preview your content or other people's content, or they can preview it at some stage and then come to class ready to talk about it or ready to apply that knowledge or further apply it in practice. Okay, so a couple of tips for YouTubing, and then we'll pause for question and answer. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to kind of skim through these. Are we still ending at 3?
I think because we started a bit later.
Yeah. Okay.
What we want to do is we want to make sure that you cover everything you want to cover. So it's
okay.
Don't worry, don't feel
okay.
Stressed or anything like that.
A couple minutes might be okay. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I won't go too long. And then, just with YouTube, again, going back to baby steps, use your phone, leverage the apps that help you. The built-in video apps that help you to make simple short videos on language learning, and just get started and practice. So let's jump over to the Google Doc, or actually let's just type in the chat. But the Google Doc's there if you want to read it later or add to it later. But why is it important to use video? What do you all think? Either video you create, find, or that your students create. Like you've mentioned, students doing speaking exercises. It's memorable, attractive, it's flexible. it's kind of all ages. I think even from young children to, you know, grandparents, everybody can access video these days. It's creative. Yeah, it can be very creative. Definitely. And for me, it's about voice. Like I want my students to have a voice. So when I remember being a student and when I was learning Spanish, and I just remember wanting to find my voice. And so I think it can help capture that, having a voice, broadly speaking, even beyond skill development. Okay, great. So again, I kind of shared my channel extremely briefly, but just organizing your channel is really essential, and curating that content, whether it's on YouTube, SoundCloud, just organizing your content in ways that it's logical for your students to locate things. And then the other thing about YouTubing is I encourage my students, and now I teach adults, but I encourage my students to have their own video channels. And so it's really wonderful when they do. So here's an example of a student. She did book talks. She taught English, high school English in Texas. And so she was a master's degree student, and she ended up doing book talks, but she also did these dialogue videos that I would do where I talk to an expert and we record that video. So encouraging your students to kind of take off and soar with creating video and audio content is really great. And some of them are already doing this. So it's not always second nature for them. So the types of videos I do are short lectures, 1 to 5 minutes, micro learning, and then modeling or demonstration. So showing how to say something or showing how to do something is really effective. And dialogue, so getting a colleague from anywhere. If you go to my YouTube channel, I do a lot of kind of interview style videos. It should be organic, not so stiff, and then vocabulary development, and then participation kind of videos. So again, I kind of summarize them here. I also do tutorial videos, so how to do an assignment, and they love those, like how to make an A on something. So you really want engagement to be high. So listening to yourself and trying not to say and ah and that kind of thing. Just keeping it really short and sweet for them, jumping right into content, semi-scripted. So having a script, but you can deviate from it a little bit. And then length, not going on too long. I always say get to the point. So jump right into your topic. People want to know. And if you watch a lot of how-to videos on YouTube, you notice that they just jump right in and they get to the point, and it's very engaging. And so same thing with your students. And again, start with complex or technical topics first, because those are going to be they're going to pull them in. They're going to want to know how to do something tricky and hard. And I tell them, you may need to watch this, more than once. And then think about, do you want captions? Captions can help everyone. And, you used to be able to annotate things on the video. I don't think you can do that in the editor. And so, yeah, so a couple categories. Let me pause for a question. Could you please share any research works that offers findings on increased student motivation? I don't know of a lot of research on microlearning, but there is a lot of research on the idea of cognitive load with online learning. And so when students are overwhelmed with information, they're going to have reduced learning. So when you can reduce cognitive load for students by having kind of consistency with your content, then that's helpful to students. Or when you chunk it into smaller units, that can reduce cognitive load. So that's kind of the broader topic, and there's a lot of research on that, but I don't know if that connects to actual microlearning, but that's a good question. So, but that's my short answer to that, is it reduces cognitive load for students. They can chunk that content, and they can also rehearse it more. So rehearsal increases learning when they can hear it again through repetition, or if they can produce it again, like if they hear it and then try it out. So rehearsal and practice really helps students. So demonstration videos, I used to demonstrate how to read, learn to read with my niece. And dialogue videos, these are great, like talking to a native speaker or just talking about a concept. Here I'm defining dyslexia. and I talk to an expert in mind-brain science. Traditional lectures, again, this is my #1 video. It sounds dull, but people love this video. I have people write to me from India and Australia, and they're like, thank you. I didn't understand it. Now I get it. So just explaining things in really complex topics, explaining them in clear ways. There's a huge demand for that. You'll see your numbers soar when you can clearly explain something really tricky. I started doing these edutainment videos. I want to do more. I get my dog involved, little Westie. But just, you know, these are more general beyond language, but just helping students have study skills, that kind of thing. So how to not procrastinate, you know. So again, moving beyond language a little bit, but just study skills that will help them stay organized as learners. And I have how to, you know, manage your time. I need to practice what I preach. But, you know, so these are really interesting, and people love like skits. If you see what's trending on YouTube, a lot of it is like little skit videos and that kind of thing. So those are the main types of videos. The micro lecture is probably the one that's the easiest to get started with. So just breaking down your tricky concepts into sub points or explaining how to do one thing. Demonstration, those are two good ones to start with. And Joe, you mentioned for podcasting Editors Club. There's something I think similar on YouTube called YouTube Creator Academy. And so it walks you through how to get started on YouTube. So I would recommend it. And I'm pretty sure it's free. And my other main tip is track your analytics. So go in and see what videos are, what are your students watching? And then if you open it beyond unlisted, if it's public, what are people watching? And the other thing is, as I keep my comments, they have to get approval too. So nobody's posting anything obnoxious in the comment section. So you can moderate your comments, and I recommend that. If you're putting if you're using YouTube openly, you don't want anything weird. And I honestly, in 10 years, have never had a weird comment. I get the occasional kind of like, you know, gray area comment, like someone will say, you know, your hair sure does change, and every video you have a new hairstyle. Like, that's not offensive, but it has nothing to do with the content. So I moderate all my content, all my comments. And then again, just kind of to wrap up this section, you know, what can you do videos on? You can do them on technology. So think about when the pandemic started, nobody knew how to participate in a live session. So that might be helpful. I think we all know now. Speaking, like modeling speech, and an example for teaching ESL. That's my field. Grammar, direct lessons on grammar. So like grammar boot camp for if you didn't learn it in high school, here's some grammar boot camp kind of thing. And there's actually a lot of good grammar videos on YouTube already. So I wouldn't reinvent the wheel there. And then dialogue, two people having a conversation, so you can collaboration videos. And then reading, so like you think aloud about an article or a topic, kind of more organic. And then how-to videos, like sharing how to do something using a screencasting tool. I use Screencast-O-Matic. And then we use Canvas, and they have a built-in tool that we use, but it's actually the same software. So Screencast-O-Matic. And then students can, of course, record their own videos. I'm going to skip these. You can look later at some examples that I've used with adult ESL. And then my last thing to do is when you're having students make videos is just use the whole like Hollywood format, right? So pre-production, production, and post-production. And they can even use storyboarding to think about how they want the video to go. And so again, scripting is, what do you all think? Do you need to script these things? Should they be more organic? Do you just need a list of topics? Like if I'm doing a dialogue video with someone, I send them the questions that I want to talk about, but those are obviously not scripted. But if you're creating a video, do you think it needs to be scripted? What do you all think? So you can kind of decide on your own if you want to do like scripted or just wing it. a little bit. So you can write a script or an outline and gather your props and resources, and then think about your tool like Screencast-O-Matic or Zoom or your phone with the video feature, and then think about your editing if you're going to edit it. And then creating your content. So here's a few resources. Starting your podcast. This is from National Public Radio in the US. And then also from National Public Radio, another link. And then one of my colleagues in South Carolina is Ian O'Byrne. And he, on his blog, he has a lot of how-to for educators on getting started with podcasting. Helen says, I script for instructions on how-to. That means they can also read it and skim it. Yes, and that whole idea of universal design for learning is that there's multiple ways to access information. So that's why I think closed captions help everyone. And having a script also helps people who just like want to preview it at a glance, or, you know, before they watch the video or even while they're watching the video. So yes, I think scripts can help in that regard. Helen says we use Loom, Google Chrome for authenticity. It's good to have a plan, but go a little off-piste. Did I say that right? Within reason, of course. Good idea to have closed captions. Yes, and so the accessibility component is really crucial. But sometimes I've had videos on. I was in the car, I think, or anyway, I was watching a video and I just had the closed captions on, so I wasn't bothering my boyfriend driving the car. And so just having that feature is really handy for different reasons. Yeah, and then you can have sound effects too, but that's a little more advanced. Okay, and then again, minimalism is fine with getting started. Use your phone. And just to wrap up, so microlearning or micro content, I hope that this concept is useful. I think it is to language learning. And it's especially helpful when you can have like some kind of interactive component. And there's so many reasons to try it out: flipped classroom, active learning, busy people, student success, remediation, they didn't get it the first time, or enrichment, they want to learn more above and beyond. Students have different background knowledge about topics. And then Helen says, when I wanted native speakers to give model answers, I scripted for them. When I wanted listening comprehension, I didn't. Oh, that's good. So then they have to really attend to what you're saying for comprehension. And also you can use microlearning as well with any context: hybrid, blended, face-to-face, enrichment, anything. So again, just kind of think about pre-production, get your ideas. And this also is for your students. So guide them through pre-production, generating ideas, storyboarding them visually if they need to. If they're talking to someone, have your questions written down, think about your audience, that kind of thing. And then production, I've used Zoom for dialogue videos, and then having a little intro to your video or podcast and an outro is nice, but not essential. And so, and then post-production, there's so many ways you can edit. Audacity is good for audio. Adobe Premiere is more sophisticated and good for video, but it has a good learning curve. And then Camtasia, scripting is kind of helpful for podcasting, and closed captions are really, I think, essential for videos. And then again, adding that thumbnail, I'm still learning about this, but adding that visual image. And it also is helpful because sometimes the video will have you like in a weird, awkward pose. Canva is good for creating channel cover art. And then again, a lot of it's teaching ourselves how to do this type of instruction. So DIY learning, do it yourself. We use LinkedIn at work. So LinkedIn tutorials, YouTube itself has a lot of ideas like through the Creator Academy. And I have colleagues who have paid to get coaching on their YouTube channel, but that's pretty hardcore and I'm not there yet, but maybe one day. So this task right here is for you to do after this session, or if you're watching the recording. Just think about getting started with microlearning. So think of an idea, jot down some ideas, and whether you'll do it alone or with a colleague, it's actually really supportive to do a video with a colleague. and talk about something related to, you know, or practice speaking for your students, modeling. And then try planning it out and take a shot at it, and then post it or keep it unlisted and share it with your students and say, what do you think? You know, and that kind of thing. So that's it. The conclusion is just that it can really be helpful for your active learning for your students, and it's really flexible for them to be able to access your content through microlearning and mobile learning. A few references, and I think we have time for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peggy. That's absolutely brilliant. Any questions in the chat, feel free to write them in now. We can see we've had a few questions coming in, which I think you've answered live, which is lovely. But yeah, just I think you're preaching to converted in a way. I think that I think the sort of the focus on the micro learning is what's key here, because I think when some teachers will do like a video project, it can become unwieldy and take up lots and lots of time. And I think people are wary maybe of spending the time making a video in that way. But what's nice about micro learning is the way that you essentially just want them to create content which is quick and easy, which doesn't necessarily require lots of editing. It's all just about capturing the moment, practicing the language, rather than making something which is sort of perfect and edited and all the rest of it. So which is, I think that's just fascinating. I think that's the way to go in lots of ways.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely holds their attention.
Absolutely. And it's putting the focus on the students to make their content. I know you've got this fantastic YouTube channel, but I would imagine that I don't know. Do you think that the learning, when the students are creating their own content, that's when the learning really comes in, and that's when they really understand the concepts by the whole, you know, creation process, would you say?
Definitely. And then production of speech and hearing other people as examples and not just the instructor. So it's always helpful.
Excellent. I mean, another thought that comes to mind is some people who do sort of podcasting in the languages classroom, they tend to have like a podcasting club, because of the fact that if you've got, say, 30 students all trying to produce a podcast at the same time, that can be difficult with things like background noise and all the rest of it. Is that, I mean, can you sort of give us a bit of context about when you set an assignment for micro learning? Do they tend to do that individually? Do they tend to work in small groups, or do they work all as a whole class, as it were?
I need to do more collaborative. I know in the K-12, I do individual projects for content creation. So make a video and that kind of thing. And they're obviously shared with each other. But I think collaborative learning is ideal. I think because I think it's trickier during the pandemic. But if you can really model and guide them, I think that students can join together to make content.
I couldn't agree more, definitely. And I think as a result of the pandemic, with lots of students working at home, it's a perfect opportunity, or it has been a perfect opportunity for them to be a bit more creative, to do explore other ideas on using their mobile devices, what have you. So it's been really interesting, all these different references and different ideas you shared with us. So thank you so much, Peggy. It's been great.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen. So.
No problem. Helen, a few thoughts.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you ever so much. I think as with, all of these webinars, it makes you think, oh, yes, I'd like to go and explore that. But I think you really have fired us up. Certainly me. I'm thinking, yes, I have done this, but I loved your ideas. I love the idea of organizing it better. And I also appreciate the difference that you're making about, actually, you're making videos to instruct adult learners. I suppose it's a bit like what we're doing at the moment. We're providing webinars. And the fact it is done by video can be really helpful, but it's also good to, what we do is that we put this onto a website, so that then you can see the chat, you can see, it's lovely the way that you've shared your presentation. So you're really demonstrating here everything you're talking about, aren't you? That it's multimodal. We can do it. We can watch the webinar. We can look at your screen. We can see also what the interaction was like. So thank you ever so much. Really, really good.
Thanks for having me. I'll go back and check out your recordings.
Yeah, that'd be great if that's okay. I'd love to know your feedback. We've had so many interesting videos over the pandemic. It's been really wonderful. Any other questions for Peggy?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me just to open up? I think we've lost whoever that naughty person was.
Yeah.
So I've locked the meeting. So now what we can do is I can make it so people can actually talk. So because John Reddick's got your hand up, I don't know if you want to. Actually, you can. I think you can open and chat if you wanted to. Or you can ask the question. Or perhaps, is your hand meant to be up, John? No.
Not sure. If you have a question, John, feel free to write it in the chat. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah.
I haven't
go ahead.
Unmute. Yeah, there. Sorry, I hadn't done the unmute yourself. No, perhaps that was wrong. Well, I mean, shall I actually stop the recording now anyway? And
yeah, I think so. I think that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you. And right, stop recording.